The temple bells tolled, shattering the silence of dawn. A cold mist hung over the courtyard as Elias, the young monk, knelt before the stone steps. His chest tightened, and he whispered to himself, "Why do I feel so hollow?" Master Kenji appeared at the far end, his presence like an unmoving mountain. He said, "The path you cling to is crumbling beneath your feet." Elias's heart quaked. The skeptic Marcus stood by the temple gates, arms folded, his lips curling in disdain. "See? Even your master doubts you." The words struck like knives. Elias looked to his fellow disciple, Aiko, but her calm expression only deepened his shame. Shadows of his past flickered in his mind, voices whispering of failure. The world seemed to tilt, and Elias gasped, "Am I lost already?" Kenji's eyes locked onto him, piercing yet gentle. "What is lost was never yours to keep." The words rang like thunder, breaking Elias's fragile certainty. Elias wandered alone through the temple garden, footsteps heavy against gravel. The cherry blossoms above seemed mocking in their beauty. He whispered, "Why do petals fall so freely, while I cling in fear?" Aiko joined quietly, her hands folded. She said, "Because they accept the wind." Her words stung with truth. Elias pressed his hand against the trunk of a tree, eyes stinging. He thought of Kenji's words, each syllable a weight, dragging him deeper into doubt. Marcus's smirk haunted him. He asked, "Am I nothing without perfection?" Aiko's voice, soft and sure, replied, "Perfection blinds. Peace opens." Inside the meditation hall, incense curled through beams of light. Elias sat cross-legged, but his breath shook. He muttered, "Stillness feels like suffocation." Kenji's voice echoed from the shadows, only the restless fear silence. Marcus scoffed in the corner. "Or maybe silence proves nothing." Elias clenched his fists, trembling. His thoughts roared like rivers breaking their banks. Kenji's steady gaze pierced him, unblinking. Aiko whispered gently, "Listen to the silence, not your fear." Night fell, and Elias sat at the temple pond. Moonlight shimmered across rippling water. He whispered, "I see only fragments of myself." A shadow of his past appeared faintly in reflection, a figure reaching out. Elias's chest tightened, fear clawing inside. Kenji's calm voice drifted through the dark, "Fragments dissolve when water is still." Elias tried to steady his breath, but his reflection wavered with each exhale. The temple bell struck midnight. Elias jolted awake from restless sleep. His chest pounded as though echoing the bell itself. Shadows flickered across the wooden beams. He whispered, "I am breaking apart." Marcus's voice echoed in his mind, mocking laughter twisted with truth. He sat upright, trembling. Suddenly, he heard Aiko outside humming softly, her voice like flowing water. It anchored him, reminding him he was not alone. The morning sun rose gently, yet Elias's chest felt heavy. He sat on the worn steps of the meditation hall, staring at the dust motes dancing in the golden air. His voice cracked as he muttered, "Why does peace feel so unreachable?" Kenji walked past him in silence, his robe whispering against stone. He paused only to say, "What you call unreachable is already within." Elias shook his head fiercely, frustration rising. He clenched his fists, muttering, "Empty words mean nothing." Marcus's mocking laughter drifted in from outside the gates. "See? Even he admits you're chasing smoke." Aiko approached softly, her calm presence like water. She said, "You hear only the echo of your doubt." Elias covered his face with both hands, whispering, "Then what am I but doubt itself?" The words left him trembling, swallowed by his own crisis. Later, Elias wandered into the temple library, rows of scrolls towering over him. His hand brushed the shelves as if answers might pour from them. He muttered, "These words feel hollow, lifeless." Kenji stood quietly behind him and said, "Words point, they are not the moon itself." Elias slammed a scroll shut, heart pounding. "Then why give them to us?" Kenji's face remained calm, unmoved. He answered, because the restless cling to signs. Marcus sneered from the doorway, or because without them you'd collapse. Elias's voice rose, trembling. Maybe I already am. Aiko entered quietly, her voice steady. Collapse leads to open space. Do not fear the fall. Elias turned away, chest burning, his doubts growing heavier. At dusk, Elias knelt in the garden, sweat dripping from his brow. He whispered, "Every breath feels heavy." Kenji set a stone before him and said, "Carry it until it becomes weightless." Elias grasped it, trembling, his arms aching. Marcus chuckled coldly, "He's breaking you for nothing." Elias's jaw tightened as he shouted, "Is this peace, pain, and emptiness?" Kenji only replied, "You must break to see you were never broken." Elias dropped the stone, falling to his knees, tears burning his eyes. Aiko knelt beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. She whispered, "The stone is not your burden, it is your mirror." Elias closed his eyes, trembling, uncertain if he could rise again. The night air pressed cold as Elias sat in the meditation hall, lanterns flickering. His chest rose in shallow breaths. He whispered, "Every silence feels louder than storms." Kenji spoke softly. Storms fade. Silence remains. Marcus's voice cut sharp. Silence is just emptiness. Elias shook his head, fear biting at his ribs. He cried, "Then why does emptiness consume me?" Kenji replied calmly, "Because you resist it." Aiko's voice floated gently, "Let it be what it is." Elias pressed his palms together, trembling. Tears streamed as he whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore." The shadows seemed to close in, swallowing him whole. Near dawn, Elias stumbled into the courtyard exhausted. His breath ragged, he muttered, "I can't bear this path." Kenji appeared from the mist, voice steady. "The path is not yours to bear. You walk because you are already carried." Elias dropped to his knees, face buried in his hands. Marcus's voice echoed sharply, "Carried? That's just weakness." Elias trembled, shouting, "Then, let me be weak." Aiko came forward, kneeling before him. She whispered, "Weakness opens the door. Strength keeps it shut." Elias lifted his head slowly, tears glistening in the first light. His body sagged, but in his heart, a flicker of something faint stirred. The courtyard echoed with silence as Elias struggled with his meditation task. He sat rigid, his breath shallow, heart pounding like a war drum. He whispered, "Why can't I still my mind?" Kenji's voice broke the silence, calm and sharp, "Because you cling to stillness itself." Elias's jaw clenched, frustration burning. Marcus leaned against the gate, smirking. "See? Even silence defeats you." Elias's eyes narrowed, his chest rising with anger. He muttered, "I am failing at everything." Aiko stepped closer, her tone steady. "Failure is not defeat, it is a mirror." Elias slammed his fist on the stone beside him, voice breaking, "Then I am nothing but broken reflections." Kenji did not move, but his presence pressed heavy, as though the air itself was testing Elias' strength. The meditation hall grew heavy with incense smoke, suffocating in Elias's lungs. He whispered, "Every breath feels like fire." Kenji's voice resonated, "Breathe, not for control, but to be." Elias shook his head violently, muttering, "Your words choke me." Marcus laughed harshly, his voice echoing off the wooden beams, "He's drowning in silence." Elias's chest heaved, anger rising like a storm. He slammed his palms on the floor, growling, "I am suffocating in emptiness." Aiko's calm presence pierced the chaos as she whispered, "Emptiness is only your reflection resisting itself." Elias covered his ears, shutting out voices, but the storm inside only roared louder. By the river's edge, Elias stood trembling, staring at the rushing current. His voice cracked, "The water flows, but I am stuck." Kenji said quietly, "Water resists nothing, and so it is free." Elias's face twisted, anger spilling. "I am not water, I am stone." Marcus's mocking voice cut across the river's roar. Finally, he admits he is dead weight. Elias turned, rage flaring. Better stone than hollow like you. Aiko's voice was firm yet gentle. Stone sinks, water carries. Which will you choose? Elias's breath caught, torn between fury and despair. He hurled a pebble into the stream, the splash echoing his breaking spirit. That night, Elias lay awake beneath temple beams, shadows crawling like claws. He whispered, "I see pieces of myself shattering." Kenji's voice echoed in his mind, "Shatter, and see what lies beneath." Elias's breath caught as the shadow of his past flickered before him, haunting and unrelenting. Marcus's sneer pierced the silence. "See, even your past mocks you." Elias trembled, covering his face, whispering, "I cannot outrun it." Aiko's gentle tone slipped into the darkness. "You do not need to outrun what is already part of you." Elias shivered, his body taut, the night pressing down like a weight he could not lift. At dawn, Elias collapsed in the courtyard, breath ragged. His voice broke. "I am losing everything. My mind, my faith, my place." Kenji's calm words echoed, "You must lose what was never yours." Elias slammed his fist into the stone, crying out, "Then what is mine?" Marcus's laughter rang sharp. "Nothing. That is all you are." Elias's eyes burned with tears, his voice shaking. "Then why do I keep fighting?" Aiko knelt beside him, her hands lightly on his shoulders, whispering, "Because even in your fight you are searching." Elias fell silent, chest heaving, the storm within raging louder than ever. The temple bells rang at midday, their echo vibrating through Elias's bones. He sat beneath the towering cedar tree, body heavy with despair. He whispered, "I am broken beyond repair." Master Kenji appeared, his robe rustling softly in the breeze. His voice cut through the still air, "You mistake cracks for ruin. Light enters through them." Elias stared at his hands, trembling, muttering, "Light feels like an illusion." Marcus's sneer carried from nearby, "Illusions are all you've ever had." Elias's face twisted, anger surging. He shouted, "Then what is real?" Kenji's gaze burned steady, his words piercing. "What is real is the one who asks. It was never the answer, only you." Elias froze, breath caught, the weight of truth striking like thunder. Elias walked into the meditation hall, his steps unsteady. He muttered, "Every word has been a riddle, and I am too blind to see." Kenji sat at the far end, lanterns casting golden halos around his still form. "Blindness," he said, "comes not from darkness but from clinging to sight." Elias shook his head violently. "I have clung to everything. I cannot let go." Marcus's voice cut harshly, "That's because without clinging, you are nothing." Elias's heart pounded, sweat dripping. He fell to his knees, whispering, "Then let me be nothing." Kenji's tone was unshaken. "In nothing, all is seen." Elias's tears hit the wooden floor as silence pressed down heavier than any storm. By the river, Elias knelt, his reflection rippling across the water. He whispered, "I see nothing but a stranger." Kenji stood behind him, his tone calm. "You suffer because you chase the image, not the source." Elias clenched his jaw, muttering, "I am lost in mirrors." Marcus laughed cruelly, his voice sharp. "At least a mirror shows something real." Elias slammed a stone into the water, shattering his reflection. "I want the truth," he cried. Kenji stepped forward, voice thunderous yet soft. "The truth is that nothing was ever hidden. It was your grip that blinded you." Elias's breath faltered, chest tightening with sudden clarity. Night settled, and Elias sat at the edge of the courtyard. Shadows stretched long, moonlight silvering the stones. He whispered, "I have clung to perfection, and it has ruined me." Kenji's calm words floated, "Perfection was never yours, only your chains." Elias's breath shook, muttering, "Then I have wasted everything." Marcus's voice pierced sharply, "Yes, and now you see it too late." Elias buried his face in his hands, tears spilling. Aiko appeared silently, her voice soft. Too late does not exist. The present is always enough. Elias's chest ached as he lifted his eyes toward the moon, its glow bathing him in quiet revelation. The dawn broke slowly, golden light painting the horizon. Elias stood alone on the temple's high balcony, breath unsteady. He whispered, "I see it now. I was never broken. I was only clinging to pieces." Kenji's voice carried from behind, steady and deep. "And so the cage opens." Marcus's silence hung strangely heavy, his smirk gone. Aiko's gentle words floated, "You see the sky as it is, without walls." Elias's eyes welled, not with despair, but with awe. He whispered, "The world has always been open." His shoulders loosened, a weight long carried now falling into stillness. The temple rang silent as Elias collapsed onto the courtyard stones, sobbing. His voice broke, "I cannot bear myself." Kenji's voice carried, calm yet unyielding, "Then surrender what you cannot bear." Elias slammed his fist down, crying out, "I am nothing without my struggle." Marcus sneered, "Then you are truly nothing." Elias's chest heaved, breath ragged, his world spinning. Aiko rushed forward, placing her hands on his shoulders. "You are not nothing," she whispered. "You are here." Elias's sobs turned to silence. For the first time, the stillness did not suffocate. It held him. Elias gasped for breath as the courtyard swirled in silence. He whispered, "I am letting go." Kenji nodded, his calm face steady. "Then you are free." Marcus's sneer broke, his voice uncertain. "Freedom? You've just collapsed." Elias lifted his head, tears glowing, whispering, "No, I have surrendered." Aiko's gentle words filled the space. Surrender is not defeat. It is release. Elias's trembling body began to still, his eyes softening as though for the first time he saw the world clearly. He whispered, "Peace was never far." The courtyard shimmered in silence. Elias whispered, "The storm inside has ended." Kenji's calm reply followed, "The storm was never outside you, it was only your grasp." Marcus stepped forward, voice low, "And now, you have nothing." Elias turned, meeting his gaze, voice steady, "I have nothing to lose, nothing to hold. And that is everything." Aiko's expression glowed with quiet joy, her voice soft, "You have found what cannot be named." Elias exhaled deeply, his chest finally light, the chains of his struggle dissolved like mist at dawn. The temple bells tolled softly. Elias stood slowly, his voice clear. "I am no longer chasing. I am here." Kenji's eyes glimmered with quiet pride. "Then the path has found you." Marcus's arms dropped to his side, his mocking tone gone, his silence loud. Aiko stepped closer, her voice carrying warmth. "The seeker has become still." Elias closed his eyes, a smile faint on his lips, the storm within dissolved. The world around him felt unchanged, yet he was entirely new. As dawn fully broke, Elias gazed across the valley, eyes shimmering with quiet awe. He whispered, "Peace is not something to find. It was always here." Kenji's calm voice drifted, "And now you see." Marcus stood behind, his face unreadable, caught between doubt and wonder. Aiko's gentle smile radiated calm as she said, "The world is the same, but you are no longer chained." Elias closed his eyes, his breath slow, his heart unburdened. For the first time, he felt whole. The morning after his collapse, Elias walked through the temple garden with slow steps. The blossoms drifted around him, each petal falling like a gift. He whispered, "The world has not changed, but it feels alive." Kenji stood nearby, his eyes following without judgment. "It was never the world that was lifeless, only your gaze," he said softly. Marcus leaned against the garden wall, silent now, his mocking grin gone. Elias bent down to touch a petal on the ground, his breath steady. "Even in its fall there is no loss," he whispered. Aiko's calm voice added, "Falling is simply another way of being carried." Elias smiled faintly, peace blooming inside him, fragile yet undeniable. Elias sat by the temple pond, watching ripples spread across the water. He whispered, "The reflections no longer frighten me." Kenji's calm presence stood behind him, saying, "Because you no longer chase or resist them." Elias leaned closer, touching the water gently, watching the ripples fade. Marcus approached, his voice quieter than before. "And what happens when the ripples return?" Elias turned, his tone steady. "Then I will watch them pass as I watch clouds move." Aiko's serene laughter floated. "Even storms drift eventually." Elias smiled, his chest lighter, the pond no longer a mirror of fear but a window of peace. The meditation hall glowed with afternoon light, incense rising in soft curls. Elias sat cross-legged, his body relaxed, breath steady. He whispered, "I once feared stillness, now it feels like a home." Kenji nodded slowly, his words soft. "When you no longer grasp at silence, silence embraces you." Marcus leaned against a pillar, his face uncertain, as though torn between mockery and awe. Elias's gaze softened, no anger toward him. "Even your doubts are welcome here," he said quietly. Aiko's calm voice joined, "Peace is wide enough for all storms." The hall's stillness held them, not as a prison, but as an open sky. Elias walked through the temple courtyard as dusk settled, lanterns glowing. He whispered, "Even shadows seem gentle now." Kenji walked beside him, voice soft, "Because you no longer call them enemies." Marcus followed slowly, his face unreadable, but the sharpness gone. Elias stopped, gazing at the fading sky, his voice steady. "I see the same world, but it feels entirely new." Aiko's gentle words carried, "It is you who is new." Elias breathed deeply, shoulders loosening. For the first time, he felt no weight pressing down, only the vastness of peace. That night, Elias stood on the temple balcony, stars shimmering above. He whispered, "There is no end to this path, only steps." Kenji's voice carried softly, "The path has no destination, only presence." Marcus stood behind, staring at the sky with troubled eyes. He muttered, "And if the path leads nowhere?" Elias turned gently, his tone calm, "Then nowhere is here, and here is enough." Aiko's quiet words joined, "Every step is already complete." Elias looked back at the stars, his heart no longer restless but still, as if the sky itself had taken root within him. The morning sun broke wide over the valley, spilling light across tiled roofs and dew-laced blossoms. Elias sat still in the courtyard, legs folded, his robe catching the warmth. His breath rose steady, eyes half closed. He whispered, "I no longer wander, for I was never lost." The words rose like gentle bells in his chest. From afar, Master Kenji watched, unmoving, his lined face illuminated by sunlight. His voice echoed, calm and measured, "Lost is only a name we give when we forget the ground beneath us." Elias bowed his head, tears glimmering in the light, not of sorrow but of release. Marcus emerged from the shadows of the temple gate, his smirk absent, his gaze heavier. He stood watching, uncertain. His lips parted, but no words came. Elias lifted his eyes to him, voice soft and steady. "The same sky carries you, Marcus. You do not need to cling to shadows." Marcus shifted uneasily, as though the ground itself had unsettled him. He muttered under his breath, "Shadows are all I've known." Aiko walked into the courtyard, her white robe bright as sunlight itself. She said warmly, "The seeker has become the witness, and witnesses see even shadows without fear." Elias smiled faintly, silence stretching between them, no longer a void but alive with possibility. By the temple pond, Elias stood gazing at ripples glimmering under the rising sun. He whispered, "Every drop is the river. Every ripple carries the whole sky." His reflection shimmered, no longer fragmented, but part of flowing water. Kenji's voice floated from behind, steady. "And the river resists nothing. Therefore nothing resists it." Elias nodded softly, his hand brushing the surface, watching circles widen until they vanished. His chest no longer tightened at the sight. Instead, it expanded with stillness. Marcus crouched near the water, frowning, his voice hushed. And when the river dries, when the flow ends. Elias turned toward him, meeting his eyes with calm. Then even its bed carries the memory of water. Nothing is lost, only carried differently. Marcus pressed his lips together, conflict flashing in his eyes. Aiko bent beside the pond, her hand skimming lightly across the water. She said gently, "Even storms are only passing guests. The river does not cling, nor does it mourn." Elias exhaled deeply, his shoulders light. "And in the flowing, nothing is ever gone," he whispered. The pond glowed, as though answering in silence. The meditation hall radiated with afternoon glow, incense spiraling like soft threads. Elias sat in the center, posture tall, his breath flowing like wind through bamboo. He whispered, "Peace is not a place I reach. It is the air I breathe." Kenji sat opposite, his gaze calm, voice steady. When the chase ends, stillness appears as what was always here. Elias's lips curved into a faint smile, the hall echoing with silence that was no longer heavy but vast. Marcus leaned in the doorway, shoulders pressed to the wood. His eyes lingered on Elias, confusion shadowing his face. He muttered, "And what of doubt? It gnaws without end." Elias turned toward him, eyes soft, no anger in his voice. "Then let doubt sit as a guest. Peace does not refuse visitors." Marcus shifted, his chest rising uneasily, yet no scorn left his lips. Aiko sat nearby, her voice warm. "Even storms belong to the sky. No part of the sky rejects them." Elias closed his eyes, his breath deep, the silence within matching the silence without. For the first time, silence felt infinite, not empty. At dusk, Elias stood at the temple gates, lanterns glowing as villagers passed along the path beyond. He whispered, "The world is the same, yet every detail glows with life." Kenji's voice carried from behind, "Because your gaze no longer clouds what was always clear." Elias touched the wooden gate gently, feeling its worn grooves, each scar of time now beautiful. Marcus approached slowly, his face dimly lit by the lantern. His voice cracked, "Perhaps, I too am tired of shadows." Elias met his eyes, no judgment within him. "Shadows fade when you stop chasing light," he said softly. Marcus turned away, fists tightening, his lips pressed as though wrestling with himself. Aiko stepped into the lantern glow, her voice calm. "Being is enough. Even a shadow exists because light is present." Elias's chest rose deeply, his breath mingling with the evening air. "Yes," he whispered, "even the shadow is carried." The gate creaked in the wind, a sound now soothing, no longer foreboding. As the sun set beyond the mountains, the sky burned with crimson and gold. Elias stood on the temple balcony, the vast valley opening before him. His voice rose gently, "I am not lost. I am here." The words spread like waves within him, no longer a plea, but a truth. Kenji stood beside him, his eyes glimmering with quiet pride. "Here," he said softly, "is all there ever was." Elias closed his eyes, breath steady, shoulders free of the burdens he once carried. Behind them, Marcus lingered in the shadows, his smirk long gone, his expression caught between resistance and longing. His lips trembled as though words would form, but none came. Elias turned his head slightly, saying calmly, "Even silence speaks." Aiko rested her hand gently on the railing, her voice carrying warmth. "The seeker has awakened, and now the witness sees." The wind brushed against them, carrying the scent of blossoms, the sound of distant bells. Elias whispered once more, "The silence is not empty. It is home." The horizon glowed, fading into stillness that was infinite, alive, and whole.